Okay, I think that we should start. Thanks a lot for coming. We were expecting 60 people who registered for a session. I guess that some of them got lost. I did this morning. Some of them will be trickling in, but I think that we should start now. So, I am Marco Masia. I'm board member of the MCAA Alumni Association, and I'm also the organizer of the session. So, the session will be a moderated panel discussion. After a short introduction made by one of our speakers. So I will start immediately with introducing you to Maria Loloni. She is business analyst at the Climate-KIC. She will say what the Climate-KIC is, so I'm not going to spend any more words about it. And she has a background in economy and a lot of experience in the circular economy. And so she will make now a presentation about what they are doing for the circular economy. And then we will move to the panel discussion, and I will introduce all the other panelists to you. Maria, if you would like to come here. Here's your mic, should be already on. Please make sure that you keep it close.
Thank you. It's good, yes? Yes, perfect. So good morning from me. And I was thinking the same as Marco, that after great dinner yesterday and quite some wine, I'm very happy to see you actually today at 9 o'clock sharp here. So it is quite a challenge, and thank you very much, because it means a lot to us actually that we have certain people in the audience. Means that you are interested in the same topic, or we are sharing the same vision to turn our world circular. So thank you for being here. First, what we are going to see today. So I'm going to take you through a journey of how to turn our economy from linear, that it is today, into circular through systems innovation. So for those of you that might not know what these two words mean, so the linear economy is what we are mostly, how our economy operates today, mostly. It's taking materials, taking raw materials, producing products, using those products, and disposing of these products. This is a line, yeah? Starts from here, finishes there. The circular economy, it's more like a circle, as the name says. So it is using secondary materials to produce products, to meet our needs. It's reusing these products, repairing these products in the meantime, refurbishing these products. And then when these products finally might need to be disposed of, we're looking at recovering all the materials we can. So recycling in the best possible way. So we have a full circle. We don't have any waste anywhere in this process. So first of all, yes, this is Maria from Climate-KIC, and Climate-KIC, EIT Climate-KIC, stands for, the KIC stands for Knowledge and Innovation. So the KIC is one of the 8 knowledge and innovation communities of the European Union. We have more than 360 partners are present. And we share with all these partners, this is our community, and we share with our community a common vision. How can we change our economy into a prosperous one, a circular one, and one that produces net zero emissions? So here's our partnership. So partners come from all countries, most countries across Europe. There's different types of partners. So we have partners that come from academia, a lot of universities. We have research partners, research institutions. We have a lot of businesses, as you see here, and cities and regions we also work with. NGOs, also citizen representatives. And here you can see in more detail some names of our partners. Yes, so you can see, for example, KLM, Veolia, big companies, ENGIE, Bayer, Covestro, then smaller companies also, like NTU International there, and then universities, TU Delft from the Netherlands, TNO Research Institution, TU Berlin, we have from Austria, the University of Leuven, here we have Lorenzo on the panel. And also we're working with cities. The city of Helsinki here is an example, and the C40, so a collection of cities that have sustainability very high on their agenda. And yeah, these are the types of partners. And WWF, when we're looking at citizen representatives. So together with our community, we're doing different activities, and we're trying to build this movement of climate action. So far, these are stats from last year. So we have supported a lot of innovative startups, among them referred on the panel today, more than 1,000. We have about 400 products launched and services on the market. We have a lot of participants in education activities. You see here more than 17,000 people, different educational programs related to innovation, climate innovation, and a lot of jobs created in this process. I'm waiting for, yes. So what do we do? Where do we work on? So here, it's we are working in the areas where we have emissions, so where humans have activities that create emissions. So we work in 4 different areas at the moment. So we work in cities. You see this urban transitions piece. We work on land to reduce emissions from land use. We work with industry to give us the products we need to meet our needs as a society. And we are working with finance, so how can we unlock financial flows to support innovation in all these different areas? So I'm going to go a bit more into detail into industry. So how do we work with industry and why? So first of all, the industrial sector is responsible for a lot of carbon emissions today. So at least 1/3 of total greenhouse gas emissions. What happens today, the current status is that we are inefficient in meeting our needs with industrial products. So right now, less than half of materials in Europe are recycled or reused. The rest is lost. And in this process, we're not even efficient. So what happens is that even if we do it, we still lose a lot of material and energy value, 95%. So we can do this better. There is a lot of opportunity. There is a lot of space that it's underexploited, and this is where we can actually act to change this. How do we see ourselves, Climate-KIC? So we see ourselves as the enabler for this transition, and our community of partners together with us, we see us as an enabler. So what we are doing, we are working with cities and regions, and we help them to transition their economies and societies to net zero carbon ones. How do we do this? So this is the approach we are following in Climate-KIC. So we are working on systems innovation. What this means is that the way the system works today needs to change completely. And in order to do this, there is no silver bullet. So we cannot say that a new technology is going to come in and disrupt the way the economy works completely. Could be the case, but normally it's not. Then, or a new policy is going to come in and disrupt completely how the economy is working. It's not really possible. So what happens is that systems operate in a certain way. There's all different elements. What you see here as levers of intervention. These are different parts of the system, different points in the system that need actually to work in a coordinated way in order to change the state of the system. So I can give you an example. So it could be that a new technology comes in. It needs policy and regulations need to be able to support the uptake in the market. Finance need to provide the financial flows to, if it's a new technology, it's a high risk, so finance need to be more progressive and see this and actually provide the flows we need. We need new skills for transforming to the circular economy. We are not exactly sure how to do it yet, so we are starting now, a lot of universities also, but it's going to need reskilling from us. And behavior. Behavior is very, very important, number 4. So that's behavior change of all of us. So how do we act in order to go into this new paradigm? So what we do is we are working together with our partners. We're looking at different systems. In our case, we're looking at the highest emitting systems of industry. So that's chemicals, including plastics, cement, and metals. These are the 3 highest emitters in industry. And we are looking at the whole system, which points in the system, which levers need to change, where do we need innovation, and to what extent. And we create this innovation, we develop it together with our partners, and we pilot it on the ground in different cities and regions, and together with industries. So that's how it all comes together. And 3 examples, because yeah, the previous might seem a lot high level and complicated actually, how to transform a whole system, yeah. So these are 3 concrete examples of projects we have started and what we're looking at doing in those. So the first one is eCircular. eCircular is a project that started last year, and it's looking at reducing plastics in the economy, making the best that we can in order to making the best we can from digital technologies in order to reduce plastics in the economy. So we are looking here at eco-design. How can we design different and better products? How can regulations support this effort? And what can digital technologies help us with behavior change? How can we, as citizens, use these technologies to change our own behaviors? This project, Circular Cities, is looking at the policy lever. So here we're looking at how can we are working with cities in Europe and globally, and we're looking at how can we integrate circular economy in the city planning. We have a lot of cities here. This is a new report that was just published this year. So it's examples from cities around the globe. And what do they do about circular economy, different activities, different examples. And we are also looking with them to see how do we set these targets and how do we measure ourselves, again, these circular targets eventually. New methodologies for that. And the last one, it's the Loop Ports project. So this project is working with ports around Europe. So the question is there, how can we transform the ports of today to the circular ports of tomorrow? So this project is bringing together ports around Europe, from the north and the south of Europe and East, and it's looking at what are the material flows in the ports and what we can do about them with innovation. How can we transform the wasteful system of today in these locations? And that's it for the 3 projects. And I don't know, Marco, if should we accept questions now or should I come back to the
panel? I think that it's better to now have a bit of panel discussion. We make some questions, and then we accept questions also from the people here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You can bring it with you. So I introduce you to the other speakers now. So Peter Windischhofer, he's the founder of Refurbed, a startup in the circular economy, which was recently awarded or ranked in the Forbes 30 under 30 ranking, which means the 30 top leading entrepreneurs in Europe under 30 years old. And it's a great recognition. And his company is doing very well. He will tell us about the company. Then Lorenzo Rieg, he is from Leuven University here in Austria, not far from here. And he works, he has a background in geology, is that right?
It's more like environmental science.
Environmental science, okay. And he works in close connection with the Climate-KIC on the research side. And then we have Gwendolyn Bailey. She's an MCAA member. She does research on rare earth metals to be used in batteries, for example, for application for electric cars or things like that. And finally, Ewan Geffroy. And he is a marine biologist, former ESR, PhD in environmental sciences, and he's now the leader of the task force that we have in our policy working group for climate change. Okay, so I would like all of you just to give a brief introduction and maybe say 2 words on how you are related to the circular economy in your business or in your research and in your roles, let's say. Please, Peter.
Well, hi everybody. Welcome you to Vienna. I'm based in Vienna and I'm from Austria, so I'm really happy that all of you made it to this great city. I'm one of the founders of Refurbed. We're a marketplace for refurbished electronics, so basically phones, laptops, and tablets that are used, then completely renewed, look like new and function like new, and which means that customers save up to 40%, but they at the same time have a very sustainable product. And this combination of a cheaper price and a more sustainable product is, for me, a very unique thing, and it's very rare, I think, actually, in our economy. And this is also why we've been very successful so far. What is important to know is that we are a marketplace, so it means that we do not do the refurbishment ourselves, so we do not repair the products ourselves. But we are a platform where professional sellers can sell their products to consumers. And basically our mission is to drive the demand in the society and educate people and say, hey, this product is so much better than new products. These products are better than used products. So go ahead and buy those, and do not waste your money on new products that, again, eventually get some waste in landfills. But yeah.
So just to understand how it works, right? If I have my old phone that doesn't work, so I send it to you, or what happens?
That part, not yet. So basically our sellers right now have multiple sources of old equipment. For example, large corporations, they sell 5,000 used phones. Then our sellers buy those phones, refurbish them, and then sell them back to the consumer through our platform. And basically our part is to set a standard in the industry, what it actually means, what a refurbished product is. We control those merchants, those sellers, and check, hey, is the quality right? And if it is, so they're allowed to sell through our platform. And basically our biggest impact is by telling people, hey, these products are the future, go ahead and buy them. And yeah, we started 2 years ago. We're now 25 people, have nearly 40,000 customers. So people really like the idea, but it's very important to get the message out there and tell people about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Lorenzo from University of Leoben. That's like about 2 hours into that direction. It's okay if you've never heard of it before. It's a rather small town. And yeah, we are a quite small and technical university focusing a lot on materials. Historically, it's been a mining university. It's like the mining area of Austria as well. That's why we work a lot on steel. And we have a lot of research and education in the areas of circular economy. But I mean, that has been mainly, let's say, coming from the resources side. And what I'm doing or trying to do is to like approach this more from like a climate side. So yeah, see what's important to basically save greenhouse gas emissions from the circular economy. And I'm not really focusing so much on what's happening with the materials. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Gwen?
Hi, I'm Gwendolyn Bailey. I am focusing on materials. I'm a materials engineer at KU Leuven University. I started my Marie Curie Fellowship in 2015. So I'm almost graduated. And I'm working on a project that just wrapped last month to develop the first recyclable electric motor. Recyclable and using recycled materials. So double advantage that way. And I wasn't the person who developed the motor. That was the motor designer, but I was the person doing the life cycle assessment and the economic assessment. And that's also very important for circular economy initiatives. Secondly, I'm also co-founding an association for rare earths, which will be established legally in Brussels in April. Rare earth elements are the things we were looking to recycle from the electric motor, since they're a critical element for the EU and also produced in kind of a notoriously dirty fashion. And so bringing this organization together, this association, is the center focus is circular economy and how we can share information among the different parties that are involved with rare earths. And rare earths exist in almost every technology that you're using. I mean, this microphone, the cell phone that you have in your pocket, and the laptop here. So it's involving a lot of different supply chains and getting a lot of different stakeholders together. And that's, I think, a big challenge for the circular economy. And I'll be happy to share my expertise on that.
So hello everyone, my name is Ewan Geffroy, so I'm French and I used to be an ESR in Ireland and Germany as well. As a marine biologist, I used to be working on the impacts of extreme climatic events such as storms and droughts and water ecology, but I recently stopped that. Also on this side, so I set up the task force of climate change and environmental science in the policy making working group. As it's getting a bigger and bigger issue that the climate is degrading, so it's very important to have these kind of sessions and the opportunity to transfer the knowledge and to sparkle some new ideas within the scientific community and also outside of it, from the academic to the private and public sectors, in order also to change or at least to nudge the policy making into some way that can actually have impact on the real world and take the science out of the papers and implement it in real life, so for the causes that matters to us.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to start for what you just said, right? So sometimes you have to start with raising awareness. I was not aware or fully aware of what circular economy was until 1 year ago, for example, right? And I just bumped into a kind of job announcement where it was mentioned. I say, oh, what's that? And I didn't realize before how important it is. So maybe you can start with it, and I will pass it to Maria. So what are the challenges and how would you do this kind of rising awareness?
So I reckon the main challenges are like the people have different areas of expertise, and sometimes when you're an expert in a field, it can be extremely difficult to communicate to some other people that are not doing what you do, or even sometimes if you go to a scientific conference, sometimes you don't even understand what your neighbor is doing, even though you're working on the same topic. And it's even worse as you get out of your field. Like if you try to explain what your PhD is on to your grandma, you're gonna have quite a rough time. But so that's quite the problem, because there is a big need to work on the communication with us and also throughout the different sectors, and also to understand what are the concerns that we all have, because obviously we have different problems professionally or due to the place we live or our culture. So there's a big need of understanding and communicating, and therefore it's necessary to first assess the gaps of communication, and then once you can assess them, to propose some bridges between the different sectors who have this kind of knowledge transfer. And by promoting this transfer, we can have access to the interdisciplinarity and the very huge diversity of skills within teams or within reflection units. And this, you all know that if you talk with someone that is not working on the same thing on you can still find a common ground that can bring up awesome or new creative projects that therefore can assess some new problems that you never thought about, but you have a solution. So that's quite the future that just starts with talking.
Okay, thank you. And maybe we can pass it first to Maria and then to Peter. So you mentioned earlier, right? One of the things for the e-circular is the behavioral change, right? And it's like the next step after raising awareness, because I can be aware of it, but to kind of be active and be involved in it, how do you do that?
I would see it as 3 different levels. So the first one is raising awareness. Then the second one is what you just said, so the communication between us, because it's new things, and it's when you have especially in Climate-KIC different organizations, different types of organizations working on the same topic. So we need communication between local authorities, between businesses, between universities, and we all speak a different language, which is very normal. But it's very important to find a way to actually translate it. And this is sometimes where we come in as Climate-KIC, where in the Midlands we try to translate these different languages, because it's important that we understand each other in order to act, to go to the next stage. And acting for consumers is very important also. So that's coming back to all of us. So what decisions do we make every day? Do we have enough information to take those decisions? Are we available to find products that can meet our needs? Even if we decide to get a refurbished product, can we actually have access to it? So that's where refurb comes in. and similar startups and companies. And the third point is actually, to actually do it once we have all this information, to change our way of thinking and perception also. So a refurbished product or a used product or a repaired product, it's not, right now the perception is for many people that it's not as good as new. But in my experience, because I do it quite often, I mean, I have never seen much of a difference, actually, zero difference. So it's a matter of perception, I would say, for many things.
Mm-hmm. Peter, can you tell us about the challenges in getting people on board?
Yeah, exactly. And this is actually exactly what you said. When you tell a story to consumers, they usually have this picture of a broken phone in their mind, which is actually not true, because all the products we sell really look like new and function like new. Having said that, though, is of course most people, outside of this room, most consumers in Europe think that circular economy is a great idea if they understand what it is, and they also think that it's great to live sustainably. However, they always choose the price before having the sustainable option, and that's true for, from our experience, roughly 80% of the population. Basically, when we look at our consumers, we ask them, why did you buy the product? 20 to maybe 30% say it's because of the sustainable impact, and the rest, so 70%, say it's because of the price. And this is also backed by the data we collect from our e-commerce store. If the price increase of the product, the sales go down very quickly. So the idea, of course, is great to provide sustainable products, but at the end of the day, the truth is people buy products because they're cheaper. And we managed to build a cool brand around it that is kind of a lifestyle brand that enables our success. But at the end of the day, whatever concepts we come up with, they have to be super easy for consumers to adopt, and price is most of the time the most important trigger for everything we do.
I see, okay. And is it a kind of sustainable thing? So can you really have a low price and still be profitable?
Yeah, so basically, when we look at the sustainability angle of our products, we save most of the time more than 70% of the CO2 emissions compared to a new product, because there are very few components actually that are replaced with a phone, for example. On average, it's 1.5 components that are replaced from a used phone to a refurbished phone. And that's most of the time the battery or the display. But the rest of the phone works perfectly fine and will work for several years. It's just that they're polished and cleaned, and at the end of the day, they look like new very quickly. And that makes the refurbished process very cheap in a way, but also very sustainable. So basically it goes both ways. The cheaper the product is, actually, the more sustainable it is most of the time, because the less materials go in.
Okay, I see. Thank you. Since you said about the impact on the economy, I would pass it to Lorenzo. So you said that you look at the impact also in carbon emission, right? Like carbon dioxide emission. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, I mean, maybe first, like one more thing which I think is important for the discussion on the awareness and communicating.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is, if you talk to people, or if I or we go to companies and see, well, maybe we could do something to make their products more circular. So what usually comes is, yeah, that's great, and then it's like, do something about like recycling, use more recycled, design the products so that they're easier to recycle, because I think that's mainly because there's usually like it's easier to find a good business case, whereas the whole area which actually comes before you have to recycle a product, so reuse, that's like very rarely put forward, or that I think that's where also communication and awareness could focus on more. So just to communicate or show that there's quite a lot which comes actually before you go to before you recycle a product. And that's also where there's from an emission standpoint, where there's quite a large potential of saving emissions if you don't go all the way to recycling. I mean, it's of course much better to recycle a product than to take it apart and then throwing it away. But I think in some cases there's quite a large focus on this. For example, Austria has like a circular economy strategy now in the program of the government, but it's really nearly completely focusing on recycling, because Austria already has quite a high recycling rate, and they're quite proud of it. And I mean, that's nice, but I think more could be done, before.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, talking about that, so I've read that even if every countries who recycle most, like talking about plastics, for example, actually don't really have the impact that should have, right? Because for plastics, I read it's like 10% maximum is something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is also actually a bit of a tricky question, because like sometimes like it depends also on how this figure is calculated, because sometimes like the recycling rate actually means the amount of material collected for recycling, but then it might not be, for example, I mean, case of plastics, quite often it's not recycled here. I mean, it used to be exported to China for actually like manual sorting by people. China said, okay, we don't import waste anymore, a bit more than a year ago, which actually was part of, I think, bringing that up in the discussion in the European Union to quite a high level. So now things are starting to change, get done, but I'm not an economist, but in my opinion, we still do not have a like really functioning market for secondary plastics in Europe. Still quite a lot gets exported to other countries now, not China. I mean, there's a lot going to Malaysia, Indonesia. I hear now Nigeria is picking that up, and yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of sad. I think it would be great to just collect all the plastic here, really recycle it, and not, let's say, when I'm kind of digressing here. But yeah, I mean, it's those like rates of how much is recycled. You have to really look at how they are calculated or where they're coming from.
Okay, maybe we'll pick it up later when we talk about policy. But that's nice. Okay, thank you. And I will pass it now to Gwen. Yes. And so you mentioned about the association that you are founding. Is the aim of the association to talk to people, also to raise awareness, or it's more in the development of, let's say, doing eco-design like you do for
both. So it has several pillars. One of the main things that we're doing right now, which is one of the hallmarks of our association, is to create an environmental footprint of the rare earth industry. So each association that's a metals association, such as copper, aluminum, magnesium, they all have done their own life cycle analysis of their product. Yeah. Since there's no rare earth industry association in Europe, there is one in China. This hasn't been done, and so we don't actually, because it is known to be produced in a dirty way, but we don't know exactly how dirty, and we don't know. And if you want to lose weight, you need to at least step on the scale to know how much you need to lose, right? So that you need to have a benchmark of where you are in order to progress further into implementing circular economy initiatives. By contributing data to this life cycle assessment, different industries and different companies have already started contributing their data. They say, oh, this company is doing recycling their sulfuric gas to make sulfuric acid, okay, and their environmental footprint is lower, so maybe we can start doing that. I mean, so it's sharing these types of strategies among different companies is one of the ideas of the association as well. So it's about giving a benchmark and then also sharing different circular economy synergies. So is there interest from these companies actually to also step in the circular economy for? Yes, I mean, so we also we're a global association, so we're not just European, so we also have Chinese partners. Okay. The Chinese partners are very interested in the life cycle assessment as well, because there's they are very recently interested in greening their image. Yes, and European companies have always been interested in that too. So they're interested in the sustainability image as well. Yeah. So is it a PR thing, or is it more, let's say, a long-term investment they are doing on their production and to be more profitable? Well, it's hard to say like what are the specific motivations of each company, but it's not like we're not saying that this company's better than this company. We just give this is the average. We give the benchmark. So it's not like you're doing great if you're better. We don't give that individual data to different to sell it to different companies.
I see, but once you have the average, people will try to get
exactly
closer to the
automatically
average, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if it helps PR, that's great. But that's not the main reason why we're doing it. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So this brings me to Maria now again, because so I understand that consumers are on the one end where you have to change behavior, but then also there are many other actors in the value chain, right? So producers, for example, how do you get them on board?
So there is a lot of different motivations, as Gwen said. So there are producers that are looking at, could be green in the image, there are producers that are looking at the profits and the profitability, which now the data shows that there is great profit coming together with the circular economy and new business models, so changing the way we do business, reaching different target groups could be. So there is different motivations that once we approach the producers and these motivations, they are understood, so the benefits are understood, then the motivation slowly comes along. Yeah, and there is also benchmarks in its industry. So if some companies are also, or best practices. So if some companies are doing it, other would follow later. Climate-KIC in specific, we're working with the World Business Council on Sustainable Development. So a few companies, actually a collection of companies that are working on sustainability. So yeah. From different angles we approach it.
Okay, and I stay with you now. Okay, you can use different levers also, right, to kind of help people do the transition. People, I mean, producers, suppliers, and so forth and so on. One is policy, and the other one is finance. How are you acting on them?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so financial flows. So right now, what happens is that the current paradigm, so financial flows go normally into lower risk, I would say. So the circular business models that are coming up now, what we see is that there is a lack of investment quite often because they are high risk and there are no metrics again. So it's difficult for financial actors also to measure on the same criteria that they have for traditional investments. So there we're working on new metrics, actually a lot, on new metrics and on mainstreaming sustainable finance, bring it into the mainstream to have metrics for that and we work with financial organizations to support them in this transition. And with policy. So policy can do a lot about circular economy actually. So starting from public procurement, public circular procurement that can create a market, to legislation that can facilitate the introduction of secondary materials, like we heard before, to different fiscal incentives. For example, something that surprised me last year was that Sweden reduced the taxes for repaired products, so a lot more businesses were created that actually repair different products instead of selling new because of the lower taxes and lower prices consequently. So yeah, there's a lot to be done in that field, and policymakers they're starting to. I think they're starting quite good now to understand what circular economy is about. It's coming into the mainstream. They're also trying hard to understand what they can do on their side, and they need examples also coming from us and to see how it works on the ground. But it needs time, yeah. That it comes sometimes later than it should come. So, and now the focus is on waste, like Lorenzo said, targets for waste, which are calculated sometimes on data that it's not exactly informed in the way it should be. So there is a discrepancy, yeah.
I see. Lorenzo, would you like to add something about the policy, since you started earlier?
Yeah, I mean, there's, as you said, of course, a lot which can be done or could be done from the policy side. Of course, then I think this comes a bit back to this awareness and communication, because I mean, in the end, what happens on the policy level? I mean, the politicians get elected, and they at least kind of do what they get elected for, which is, I mean, part of the sense of democracy. So, if people want, if the voters care about circular economy, or a large part cares about it, and then this will get taken up by policy makers. And I think what's nice is that we really see this happening in some areas or some European countries. I mean, for example, Slovenia is a really good example where there's really a lot happening in this regard. Also, I think in the Netherlands, like, it's much more or much bigger topic than in some other countries. So there are things happening. I mean, and then also from what you can see on European Union level, for example, with the whole debate on plastics. I mean, this is a very hot topic at the moment due to various reasons, and I mean, things are progressing, and I mean, what I like kind of gather from talking to industry, we have a lot of, for example, packaging industry here in Austria, that they all kind of expect that in the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, like there will be like, I mean, depends on where in the value chain, but there will be a price will be put on the plastic waste. So they all like kind of expect that to happen.
So they risk to be out of business if they don't adapt. That's what.
Well, I mean, the thing then is, of course, it doesn't matter where the price gets put on. It will go down all the way down to the consumer, and I mean, this will change quite a lot, because then maybe it will be, at the moment, I mean, you could pack a lot of things in other ways, but the plastic's just so cheap, it's easy to handle now, so it doesn't really make sense economically to use other packaging in many ways or many areas. So, but once, like, let's say there's a price on the plastic waste included in the product or the packaging, it might quite suddenly make a lot of sense to, for example, use more cardboard again or something like this.
Okay. Gwen would like to say something.
Sorry, I just wanted to say something on that, coming from the eco-design perspective. In my home country in US, in Starbucks, they've banned plastic straws. In the EU, in mid-December, they also banned plastic straw or one-time use plastic, or starting the initiative. I don't know when it's officially started, but these are great initiatives. I'm definitely a fan, creating awareness, creating more of a circular economy. But they found in my home state in Starbucks that the new Starbucks cup lid combo, instead of removing the straw, they created a lid that was like more of a sip lid, and this cup lid combo weighed more in plastic than the straw lid cup combination. So in fact, you're using more plastic when you're trying to eco-design these materials. And so I'm just here to say that policymakers need to pay attention to science-based or life cycle assessment-based assessments in order to make sure that they're getting it right for plastic packagings specifically.
I see. So they need to make policies that are kind of reasonable and based on evidence, and otherwise you risk to use more plastic. And
if you're too focused on the image of it, like so I believe that creating awareness is doing a lot, and maybe it is doing more than the grams difference of the plastic. But I think scientific evidence-based assessments are the key to helping us move forward and to actually transition into a circular economy.
I see. Okay. Peter?
Topic, because I really like these examples, because what I think is really important is that circular economy has to be part of our future. However, the CO2 impact of our initiatives are much more important. With those plastic bags, for example, in Austria they have a new law that their single-use plastic bags are going to be banned, I think, next year, which is cool. However, the alternative, a paper-based bag, for example, has 3 times the CO2 impact of a plastic bag. So either you use the paper bag 3 times, which honestly I don't think anybody does, or you still use the plastic bag, and the plastic bag will have a better impact on our environment. And I think this scientific data is so important, and there's such a big lack of scientific thinking in our policy making that this is very, very worrying to me, to be honest.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because the perception is that it's better, but actually it's not, right?
And one more comment on that. For example, the cotton bags, so for example, the ones we got today, some of them you have to use 2,000 times to have the same impact on a per use basis as a plastic bag. So 2,000 times.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. and we got, you know, the kind of the eco seal from the city here. I see.
Not sure what's in those bags and which material, but in general, organic cotton bags have a factor of 2,000 to one plastic bag.
Okay, I see. Okay, now I will ask from the attendees if they have any question. Could you please come closer, because we have only one microphone here, so you can just come closer and ask questions. You first, and then please come here, so that you are also on the video. We are recording, so you can stay here.
Okay, I have a question for Peter, especially that you're directing business to consumers or for the refurbished, for example, like materials, phones. I know that the natural perception of the consumer is that when you put down the pricing, the quality is compromised. Like, okay, it's going to be environment recyclable, but there's always this quality, and that's value for money for the consumer. So how do you address that gap or that challenge for the consumer perception?
So for us, it's all about branding. The way our website looks, it's very clean, very modern. It's people actually compare it to an Apple kind of look, and this is really what we have to do. We have to move from, hey, these are crappy used products, to, hey, these are cool, functioning, shiny objects that are cheaper than new. And this is very important for us. Like, if we do interviews with the press, we always say, please do not write that these are used products. Never use the word used in any article that you write about us, because we really have to go away from the notion of this is a used product to, hey, this is cooler than new because I do something that is good for the environment, I get a shiny object, and I save money. So this branding aspect is, I guess, similarly important to the pricing.
Do you also have something like a warranty, like for example, if anything?
Yeah, exactly. So we have at least 1 year of warranty. Some products even have 2 years of warranty. And what we also have is a 30-day test period. So you can buy the products from us, we ship it for free to you. You can use them for 30 days, and if you don't like them, we ship them back for free as well. So there is really no risk involved. And taking out this risk element is also very important in the whole user experience.
Yeah, that's good, because that gives the customer the confidence of buying the product, because that's also an added value for money. It's added service.
Yeah, definitely.
Other question here? You? Yes, please.
It's recorded, eh?
Yes, you are on record.
That's unfortunate. Okay. There is a term that ecologists use that is called cosmeticism. What it means is this, that when society thinks about the environmental problem in a way that is not concerned at all with the root cause of the environmental problem. So I have maybe 1 or 3 questions about this. The first one is this. All this thing about the circular economy, is it connected with the root cause of the non-sustainability of the human way of life, to put it generally? To me, it seems it's totally unconcerned. For example, to put it more specifically, the exponential growth which is built into an economic system of which everything that has been said here is part, is not addressed. So is there an understanding that this can go up to infinity if we continue with taking steps like the ones you described? The second is that it may be termed a circular economy because there is some recycling. So I don't understand why this is new, because the idea of recycling has been around longer than me, and I'm long on the tooth already. So why is everybody excited, and then don't they call it let's recycle, and they call it the circular economy? And is there a recognition of what I think is a fact inescapable, that only small parts of this economy, and in a really small and limited way, are recyclable. The rest are not.
Maria?
Thank you. Yeah, this is a very important question, actually. So, the first one, it's for me. Yeah, that's why I put up my hand. So, so actually, what happens now? There is this notion that growth is connected to more, and also that as consumers we can keep on living the way we do, so more and more buy more products, and this continues. So that's the notion of today. The circular economy has a very important part that comes before the recycling. So it's how to meet our needs is the question. It's not how do we consume more to meet our needs, it's how do we meet our needs. So our needs can be met without needing new products. So there we go into the notion of sharing in circular economy. So what has picked up in the last years is car sharing, for example. So instead of buying a new car, 50 different consumers buying 50 different cars, there is one car which is shared in different schemes. In every country there is a different one actually now, a few of them similar. And they can make use of take the car to get from here to there. That's the use phase. Or the lighting, what Philips has done with the use of lighting instead of selling light bulbs. This product as a service, they sell the lighting function, and then they take back the bulbs and put new ones if something goes wrong, or they repair them. The using part, which picks up in a lot of countries now, used products. So real example myself, so 50% of what I always wear is used, my clothes, because I know clothes have a very heavy impact on the environment. So quite a few years ago I decided that I don't want to buy new anymore. So here I have, this is used, it's 50% of what I have on me, normally, on average, every day. So this is a change of perception, and there you avoid buying new products, sharing and reusing.
What economic growth means for everybody on the planet right now, it's built in an economic system, in the financial system. So it's not connected with what you're saying, that we're going to be sharing things, and maybe we're going to love each other, but there is a built-in system for the last 200 years at least that says that the economy must grow. And the growth of the economy,
yes,
in real materialistic terms, means more resources, more consumption, more garbage, and that's it.
Not,
I find what you're saying totally unrelated to my question.
No, I wouldn't agree actually. So the notion we have today for economy, yes, more means better. So GDP is calculated on certain terms, but it doesn't account for well-being. At this point, the metrics are faulty. We want to move to a new economy which is not based on the metrics we have today and the way we operate today necessarily. So it's imagining something new and try to do it. And sharing is not about, it's not about loving each other. Of course it's about loving each other, but it's not, this is not the notion of sharing. It's a new business model. So when we share the same car, it's a new business model. There's different flows of money. There's different needs that people fulfill by sharing the same car. And still they can live us in the quality they had before without needing to buy more. That's what I understand from your question. Is it's
proposing to take growth out of the equation, because this is the most really basic thing in terms of policy and in terms of change of way of life. Are you proposing this? Forget the details that we're going to say, do this or do that. Take growth out of the necessity of the economy. If you talk to an economist or to a government today and you tell them, we have to move to a non-growth economy, they will direct you to a mental institution. That's how simple it is. Are you proposing that? If you are, please say it.
No, I'm not. Wait, so first of all, I'm an economist, yeah? So growth is a certain way we calculate growth right now and what we consider as growth. There are different ways we can't consider growth. That's what I'm saying, actually. It's not necessarily linked to the metrics we have today. It's not linked to the, it's not linked to the current economy as it is. We can imagine it in a different way, growth. And actually, I would like to pass it to my colleagues because I've been speaking for a while now, see the time, so, yes.
I can answer your second question, though. This one, I'm not an economist, so I can't.
Okay.
Yeah. It was about why is everyone so excited about recycling when or calling circular economy calling recycling basically circular economy, and I can say that in my research about building a recycled motor, that in the impact of having a recycled magnets from motor on the circular economy is very small if you look at it in a macro scale. And I'm saying that this is one of the limitations of being able to view the transition to circular economy, because we don't have indicators, a framework that can measure this transition to the circular economy. So recycling, it may not be the best way to go towards a circular economy. Maybe it's reuse, but in my project about reusing an electric motor, we weren't able to do it because of the lack of communication between the motor companies with the car companies and the recycling companies. Just to give an example, an electric motor, the magnet is found in different places in the same brand and the same year of the same car. So these companies don't share this intellectual property, of course, with each other in order to know where exactly to take out the magnet, to reuse it, and to have this whole system of reuse. So that's why people are focusing on recycling, because it's much easier than coming up with a way of sharing intellectual property, or in some cases business models with each other, to know how to get out the magnet and use it in a different application, or in the same application, in an economic and technically feasible way.
I see.
Yeah.
Anybody else wants?
The answer to my observation that this is not new. It's got a
Right.
new
Yeah, no,
Okay,
just to say that
maybe-
recycling, yeah.
Yeah. Anybody wants to say anything else about? And then we maybe pass to other questions. Yeah, please.
Yeah, just like when you were mentioning taking growth out of the equation, like just previously. So actually, the thing like with the circular economy, as we just were talking about, is like there is a transfer of the matter, like just like in a regular ecosystem, you know, like everything is going to transfer. There's no notion of waste anymore, but just there is resource and potential. Like, so the idea would be like, instead of actually losing money, or like paying for cleaning some water, or just like getting rid of some, I don't know, like the part of the muscle that holds to a rope, like there is actually a way to think about the side products, on how to make money out of it, and then promote some jobs. Like, I would just take a very clear example. Like, in the aquaculture companies, like often the thing that produce some mussels, like there is often, like a small bond between the rock and the mussel, which costs a lot of money to the farmers to get rid of that, because you need to put it in, to ship it away, to find a company to clean that for you. It costs money to everyone, but you could actually turn that into actually good resource. It's just putting it in some soap, and you have a really good exfoliating product that is clean, and you can make money out of this. And it's actually cheap as well, so it's good for everyone, and it's really winning at the end of the day. It's local, and it's promoting local growth. So with just stuff that you have around. And I think this is a really good way to think, because like, I mean, not everyone is caring about ecology, and you have to say it like ecology is a rich people problem. Like, because no one is willing to sacrifice a part of your wealth for the sake of the planet. I mean, you can't save the world if you can't even make it to the end of the month. So, like, just look at what is happening, like, just right now in France. Like, they just raised a bit of the price of the gas, and the country went on fire. And so that's why we really, like, the growth can be done if we think it smartly and we communicate about our ideas. That's what you were saying with the ideas of magnets. We need to think or rethink our way to actually produce and make some richness out of things, if you see what I mean. Like, just look at at any forest and everything. Like, things are growing everywhere. There is a lot of stuff that is perfectly working. There is no waste. And just based on matter transfer, here we could do the exact same thing, but just by funding the good opportunities that promotes the local development, and then created some growth at the end of the day.
Okay.
Marco,
Yeah, thank you.
this now cannot be saying that it has to be a conversation. Really, it won't work. I have to make this observation. I'm going to do it right now. What humanity is doing into the ecology,
And then you, okay.
irreversible biochemical changes. And irreversible means irreversible. I'll give you an example. You may recycle the small part of the plastics that is recyclable. Only a small part is recyclable. But when you're doing it for example, when you're shipping it to China, you're emitting greenhouse gases, okay? You're polluting the environment, and you're using other materials to make this collection, shipment, recycling operation possible. So you should stay away from proposing physical impossibilities, which is reversibility of a process that is not really reversible. And the near totality of the processes that are causing non-sustainability of the human way of life right now is irreversible. He is a physicist. If you don't understand it, he will explain it to you. It means exactly that, irreversible. And my question that sorry, I forget your name, that I asked is, why is this considered a new idea, the circular economy? It isn't, because what it means is that there will be small activities inside it that do recycling. And as for the growth, I doubt that we have a common understanding. Growth to the economy is a necessity built into the system of money, into the system of finance and credit. So any economy that doesn't grow, actually, this is so severe, collapses. Now, growth is exponential. So there is no limit.
I have to cut you off now because we have more questions. And
there is no limit.
Can we leave this from
100 years from now? You have to think about this basically.
Can we leave it for after the session because we have more questions?
Out of politeness?
No,
No.
no, it's not out of politeness. It's just because there are other questions here. Okay, so, and I mean, you can discuss with them about these things. So I think that there are two perspectives here. One is the microeconomic approach, and the other one is the macroeconomic approach, right? So the two. The microeconomic approach is converging much faster to a circular economy than the macro, right? And we need changes. We need smart changes in policy and also in understanding how this impacts economy and how economy should transition there. I mean, theory, economical theory, okay? But I think that there is a real impact, even if it's not reversing the cycle, it's reusing in a different way instead of starting from scratch and emitting more. But it's true that we need smart policies to that. I have to pass the mic to the next question. Here you are.
Thanks. Just actually maybe reiterating a little bit on what you said, and that's actually my understanding of the circular economy, is that, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the idea what you said is like not really, like not necessarily limiting the growth, but reusing the, like making still the growth which does not generate new waste. And that in a way it might work if you consider the materials, because you recycle the materials. However, like in the process, you need to use new energy to all that work. And that's like, okay, it's great that we can, hopefully if everything works fine, right? And then that's still job to be done on the material side. But does this tackle actually the energy problem? By energy, I mean, of course, the CO2 emission and all that.
I'm not working in renewable energies, so just say that. But I do know that from my research, my life cycle assessment research about the recycling of parts from an electric vehicle, we didn't see an environmental benefit in terms of climate protection on recycling the electric vehicle motor. And that's because the use phase is the highest impacting phase. And to plug in your electric vehicle into a dirty grid is not doing very much in terms of circular economy initiatives and climate protection. So in my eco assessments of the energy mix in the EU, the average grid mix, that we need to do much better. And maybe if I was a policymaker, I would say, if we want to lose our greenhouse gas emissions, if we want to lose weight, we need to shed the fat, okay, and we need to get as much renewables in our grid mix as possible, and then to strengthen the muscles, we need to recycle materials. So that's why I would say would be, if I was a policymaker, I would focus on that in terms of transitioning to the circular economy. But I have no expertise in renewable energies, just so. Yeah.
Lorenzo?
Yeah, I mean, I too don't really have much expertise in renewable energy, but I mean, what's of course very important for all of this discussion and this, from how I look at the materials, I mean, this has to be a given. I mean that if the energy mix stays like it's now and we're still burning coal for power, I mean, then of course your impact with all that will be limited. I mean, good example maybe like is the plastics. At the moment, I mean, honestly, I mean, you make a product or packaging out of plastic, you use it, and then you burn it. Also, it's probably better than you burn it for energy recovery. So it's probably better to do that than just burn the oil or gas in the first place. When this will have an impact, though, is in the future. I mean, that's already assuming that we will have like a very clean energy system. I mean, if we don't achieve, let's say, at least a very, very high part of renewable energy in our energy system, I mean, we will not be able to achieve the Paris goals or other emission targets anyway. So, I mean, I think this has to be seen as some kind of a given. I mean, I know this will not happen tomorrow or in 2 years. I hope it will happen rather sooner than later. But this is not really my topic. And then again, of course, you will need energy to, I don't know, recycle steel. But it is really a lot less energy than to make new steel. So, and then again, of course, it will depend on the energy mix, but there are huge potential savings from greenhouse gas emissions by recycling materials.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Oh, there was a stair here. So could you please come closer so that you can line up for the next questions, and I know who's the next. Just come here, please. Here you are.
Thank you. So I'm aware it's not 100% part of circular economy, but it touches a lot on this climate change topic, and we didn't touch it yet. So I was wondering about the whole food topic, which goes a lot into behavior change also. And there are conflicting numbers always how much we're affected by it, but I think it is a big number affecting us, how we eat and how it affects climate. So could you maybe, do you think it's just, we're not talking about it because it's so difficult and we cannot change consumer behavior, or how do you see this whole food topic?
Who wants to? Lorenzo?
Yeah, I'm again not an expert on that. I know that this is actually a very big topic also regarding greenhouse gas emissions, and what I can maybe there's a like better people to answer this, but what I can say as a nice example, which again like touches what has been mentioned various times before, that it's often not so easy or obvious how to calculate something, and that it's really important to take a footprint into account. And this comes then, for example, back to packaging. So I've always been like wondering, so like why nowadays is there like every little a bit of cheese or whatever packed like separately in the supermarket, and isn't this bad, we use so much packaging? But there are, for example, studies where they investigated the footprint for food in and different kinds of packaging in Austria, and it's like usually the footprint is in the product. It's not in the packaging. So the packaging is maybe, I don't know, 2%. So if you can save like the product through like smart packaging, you save a lot of emissions.
Sorry, just to make it clear, if we take out the packaging, I totally believe you. I think it's about the food itself. If you just look at this.
So I'm also not a food environmental impact expert. However, what I really like doing, and this is actually my message to everybody, please go home and do an impact assessment on yourself, and there are multiple CO2 calculators online, and check what your personal impact really is. And for me, for example, I eat a lot of meat. However, I do not have a car, but I also fly a lot. And actually, my total impact is roughly twice of the average person, just because I fly like 20 times a year. So flying, for example, is a major impact. And coming to your point, you can also select if you're vegetarian or if you eat meat. And actually, I tested out what it would actually mean for me personally, and I could save roughly 1 to 2 tons of CO2 a year, and my overall impact per year is 18 tons. So I could save maybe 10% of my environmental impact by not eating meat. And one more comment on that is, if you do not eat meat because of that, but you do eat cheese and substitute your meat intake with cheese, it actually doesn't make any sense, because cheese sometimes has a higher impact than meat, especially like chicken, for example, is much better than cheese.
Okay. Maybe Ewan?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, just before you were mentioning like the behavior of people towards food. So like actually it's a very interesting question that also varies extremely depending on the culture. Like just look in Europe, like most often you can also travel just to eat. But I'll just talk about what I know. So like right now in France, we're starting to have a switch within the consumer behavior. So of course, like a bit of everywhere, people are turning more vegetarian or vegan, but even toward the meat consumption, about as we were saying. So food itself, people are ready to pay more money for food, but to buy it better, like to buy it local sourced and to buy it better sourced. And actually, they're really looking toward an increase of the quality of their intake, which actually makes a lot of sense. And if you think about it, it's like going back to what our grandparents used to be doing as well, eating very local stuff and with less and less of packaging as well. And actually, even if you go to the shop and stuff, a lot of people are just branding themselves because they're using the local supply of food, and it actually means a lot. So there should be a lot of support from the local communities and to just support the local reality, and that would promote better food. And also, if it's local sourced, I mean, okay, making 1 kilo of meat takes 1,000 liters of water and whatever, but at least it doesn't come from the other side of the world and didn't take the plane, basically, as we were saying.
okay. So, Maria, you want to say something about that, or?
So it's and there is the dimension about food waste, I was thinking. So this is behavior change from people. So do I buy as much as I'm going to need this week? Have I planned it correctly, or am I wasting? And then we have the food waste, which is now into circular economy coming back. We're looking at how can we use this for secondary raw materials to produce plastics from food waste, or a lot of different items can be produced. So these are technologies that are coming in, legislation that needs to support in order to do something with what's left behind. But important is actually to eliminate it. What we're all discussing, eco-designing ourselves, I would call it, our consumption, designing it again, so we don't have this problem. And the type of agriculture we want to focus on. Could it be permaculture? Do we have carbon sequestration in agriculture? This is a topic we are working on. So.
Okay, so we have many more questions. So I'll ask 3 people to come here, ask the question, and then we reply to the 3 questions. Yes, please. You too. And so you first ask, then she, and then he, and then.
So I have some more things, but one question. The first thing is, I read today in the morning the sentence: "A rich society is not a society which each poor people have a car, but where the rich people go to use the public transportation." The second one is, I know that energy efficiency has grown for 60% in the last 20 years. So that means with 10 more primary energy use, we have a lot of more use for energy through this energy efficiency. And I think that is the point of the circular economy. You have the same materials, but you make more of it. So it's not only about recycling, but it's also about use again or re-again. And one point is for me very important to differentiate the kind of plastics, because there are plastics that's very good usable and plastic that not. And that means we should go to the sufficiency. Look what I need, what I don't need, and in this case to try to have a nice way to live with less. My question is, why or how do you think you can influence media to combine young people to buy less?
Okay, let's first ask the other 2 questions.
Hello, thank you for the presentations. I have one very specific question to Peter and one general question. To Peter, how do you, Peter, right? All right. How do you factor in the crackdown by companies like Apple on third-party repairs and companies that have their own refurbishing schemes? How do you factor that in your business model? The second question, which is a more general question, I'm a social sciences, so my question is a bit not scientific. When we perceive flights, plastics, they are bad for the environment, but socially and scientifically, flights and plastics have saved humanity a lot of wars, a lot of diseases. If not for flights, most of us won't be here, and a lot of we miss out a lot of scientific interactions. So how do you balance the environmental needs with social and scientific needs and humanities? Yeah, that's
okay. The last question, and then we.
Good morning, I'm Caroline. I want to give one comment and one question. One comment related to, but he's not here anymore. It's about the, does it mean we are going to take away the growth if we are using circular economy? In my opinion, my background is in economics. Even though I don't have PhD yet, I just finished my master's degree. But let's see the basic definition of GDP is the market value of goods and services. So remember, goods and services that's being produced in one location in one period of time. So in circular economy, instead of making more goods, we are making more services. So the cars, I agree, you don't need to buy your new car. We can rent the car, but it's not going to the count of goods that produced in one country. It's going to be the services. So you rent the car. It's as simple as washing machine as well. Instead of buying a new washing machine, I go to the public washing machine. It's not renting, but I use it as a user instead of buying a new one. So I really agree with circular economy, and that's the first comment. So it's not necessarily mean we take away the growth from this whole system. We are going to keep growing because there is a services part of the GDP. So we should not forget about this. My question is, so there are three main actors in the circular economy: policy making in the public sector, in the private sector, producers and consumers. My question is, between these three actors now, we have from the scientific part, we have the policy making, and so on. So from these three actors, who should move first, or do they need to move in parallel all together? But I want to know your comments. Which one should we inform first? So is it the consumers, is it the producers, or the policy making? But in EU perspective, I do know circular economy is already in the action plan. So it's about time. You like it or you don't like it, it's already in the action plan. So it's about time to realizing this. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks for the questions. So I just pass the mic here. Who wants to reply to the first question? It was about media and how to convince people and getting them on board.
So this, I'm not an expert, so I should say. So it's an opinion, a personal opinion, because I have been thinking also about it, and we are working quite some with the media, of course, and in Climate-KIC. So it's a tough question because it depends on what's out there, like you said, yeah. So what I see personally is that behaviors like reduced consumption start coming by themselves into the media. So I read a lot of stories about yesterday. It was Rob Greenfield, the person, he was living for 2 years with a backpack and traveling around America on a bike, I think, to raise awareness about how we produce and consume in today's society. So, and this is in the media, he has a lot of followers, so it's behaviors that start popping up slowly. And what I also see is that so what makes sense sometimes, and when the time is right, media starts following also. They pick up the stories and they start following, and they create a trend in each era. So there it's on the one part the influence on the media, so what we want to show as good examples and best practices that come, for example, now from our cities, best practices on circular economy. It's all about creating local labs for repairing, for citizens to repair and refurbish by themselves items that they can't do. So these are coming in the media, and they are supported sometimes by bigger actors. So that's important, and it's slowly coming in. But how to make it much quicker? I guess now climate change is making it much quicker. What we had in the media this year, it was all about climate change, and people were interested in stories that, how do we change this? What can I do to change this, to prevent this from getting worse, actually? So that's my take, yeah.
Anybody else wants to reply to this question, or shall we pass to the next one?
Yeah, maybe just very quickly. What I also think is quite important is, as you mentioned, the best practices, good examples. I think showing that it's not that hard to act, to make changes yourself, be that through your personal in your personal life or in your professional life, e.g., like, for example, procurement and so on. And then maybe what already comes back to the last question on what to influence first. I think this can really, again, contribute to raising awareness. And I think this is, I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and I think this is where we should start, or where we have to start, because only this will then lead to action on like a larger political level, which is also accepted by large parts of the population, which then comes maybe back to the issues in France. So you have to, or I think we all and much more people have to start with that.
Okay, so you mean that if there is demand from below, let's say, then everybody will follow. Okay.
Hopefully, yeah.
So there was a direct question to you, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So it's actually a very good question. Apple is trying to buy out the used market as much as they can right now. They implemented a big buyback system before Christmas, which luckily didn't really pick up. So of course, for them, refurbishing iPhones is a major hit, right? Their numbers are going down right now, at least in the last 2 quarters. So now they're getting nervous because new iPhones cost 1,200, 1,300 euros. The average price on our products is 300 euros. So people really start thinking about, does it make sense to pay such a big amount of money to these products? So yes, this is a very big issue for us. We hope that we can still survive and, win the battle against them. However, if you also look at the macro numbers, there are, I don't know, like 50 million iPhone 7s on the market just in Europe. I don't think that Apple will go ahead and buy 50 million iPhones. So I'm not that worried about it, but it could be a major threat to the whole industry. The second question on the social impact of traveling versus not traveling, plastic versus not plastic. So it's actually very paradox for me, trying to kind of save the world and then flying around the world spreading this message. So what I do is I compensate the CO2 impact I have through flying, for example. And to be honest, that's actually not a big investment. Like, my total footprint of last year was, as I said, 18 tons, and it cost me 414 euros to compensate for it through various projects, and there are various forms of just compensate the CO2 you have. So if you want to live a low impact or low footprint life, it's actually very easy just to live your normal life and then compensate it if there is no other way of, reduce flying or reduce eating meat or whatever you do. And third question on the what should come first, like, is it the industry, the media, or politicians, or consumers? I think it has to be consumers, because whatever consumers want to read, the media will print. Whatever consumers want to happen, the politicians will do. At least I hope so. So it has to come from us, and it has to come from very engaged people to drive people's opinion. And I think that's the only way to really bring change.
Okay. Anybody else wants to comment on the questions? Okay.
Regarding the carbon credits, I also pay my local system carbon credits for each flight that I take, and yeah, it's for this flight it was like less than 20 euros, and so I do think that that's underestimated. I don't know exactly how they calculate that, but I think my damage with one flight does more than 20 euros. That's not the real impact, I think. And so having policy implement in these triangle of people, this is kind of answering the last question, policy implement some type of carbon tax would be something that's based on, again, scientific legislation, scientific evidence. Would be very helpful in reducing the amount of flights, etc., for even for scientific and humanity purposes.
Yes, there's been a lot of debate about the carbon tax and also displacing the carbon emission to other countries so that you are greener, right, Lorenzo?
Yeah, I just wanted to second that. I think it would be great to have, could be carbon tax, could be something else, but just have those, like, let's call it like all the externalities priced into products and services. And of course, this would lead to much higher prices for flights. I think the companies don't even really pay taxes on their fuel. So, which is kind of ridiculous. So of course this would then not mean like no one can fly anymore. I fly quite a lot, much more than you. And I think it might maybe help to limit it to a certain extent. And then this is, for example, one of the things I'm trying to work on this year, just to not fly to so many meetings. And it's possible to do them via, I don't know, Skype or whatever, and maybe also just sometimes say, well, I think I'm not needed there. But then again, I'm still all for having personal meetings, going to conferences, and I think then what we also can see, we discussed it a bit, that technology is not always the solution or a solution, but there will be some improvements in technology also coming and helping with those things like travel in the future, or I'm convinced this will be the case.
Okay, so thanks a lot. I think that we have to close because it's already 10:30. So thanks a lot to the speakers. Please. It would be great to continue this conversation because it's very interesting, but of course we have many more sessions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.